So it's still really hot in the summer, but with the fall coming up, we definitely want to get our garden and our yard space set up so we can enjoy the cooler temperatures. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of what the yard currently looks like, the plants that we currently have, and our plans for turning this into an edible landscape. We're planning on adding lots of different types of edible plants all over the yard. So I'm going to give you a quick tour. So first up is the porch. We haven't done any of our exterior remodeling yet. We're going to change out the front door, paint the house, remove these tiles, and kind of change up the furniture on the porch here. But we're also planning on adding lots of hanging plants. I'm planning on adding some pots or something hanging from this wall. We do have a lot of wall space out here, and then lots of different pots and planters around on the front porch. So we are trying to figure out what we want to do with this space, but we know that it's going to include lots of container gardening. The next space is this area in front of the porch. We're planning on pulling all of this out. We have lots of these native trees that keep trying to take over, but we're gonna pull all of that out. I started setting out bricks here to see if I liked it. I think we're just gonna do a simple brick line and then fill that with mulch and compost and things like that, and then do a bunch of edible things out here, probably some herbs, maybe some edible flowers, things like that. That'll look really pretty with the porch, and then not get too out of control so they're not too tall. On the other side, we do have a bay window. I'm gonna do the same thing with the bricks and kind of line them up here, and then I wanna have some things that smell really good, so when we open those bay windows, we can smell maybe rosemary or something like that in the front window there. On this side of the yard, we have a couple things that are in place that are edible. The things that are not edible are probably going to be pulled out. The first we have is the grapefruit tree right there. This is a whole mess of different plants, so we're going to definitely pull out that thing, giant flower bush. There's a cactus in there that we're going to try to we're gonna leave that in there, but we don't want it to be kind of attacked by all this other stuff. And then the oleanders that are currently lining the property, we're gonna pull all of those out and do some other, maybe like citrus hedge or something like that, to have something edible and a little less crazy and gross. Along the whole front of our property, we do have a little chain link, and I'm gonna turn that into a trellis. I don't like the look of the chain link, so I'm just gonna plant different things like peas and green beans and beans and different things like that that are gonna kind of take over that fence. Under here, we do have a little tree protected by this one's really messy, and I'm planning on maybe pulling this out and doing something else that's edible, but for now it is protecting this little tree. We haven't gotten any fruit from it yet, so I don't know what it is, but there's a citrus tree leaves as well as these other types of leaves. So it's something that's been grafted together, but we don't know what it is yet. But we're planning on pulling out some of this other, like the bush back there, things like that that aren't edible, and change it to an edible landscape. Another thing in the front yard is this lemon tree. It's not doing so good with the heat right now, but we have a lemon tree here, and then on the other side of the path here we have an orange tree. Next up is a pecan tree. That's what this big one is. There's another little pecan tree growing under it, and then a grapefruit tree. The last edible thing that's currently in the yard is the fig tree right here. So again, we're planning on pulling out a lot of this sort of stuff and doing all edible things to kind of make there more privacy, but then also we can use them to eat. So here's the fig tree. We haven't gotten any figs from it quite yet, but I'm really excited for this to get bigger and keep growing. So that's what we have going on in the front yard. I'm going to take you to the back to show you what we have going on back there. So this is the right side, and as you can see, this is that giant bush that has the grapefruit tree on the other side, and there's the cactus sticking up. So this all needs to be cleaned up. It's just too big, too much. So we're going to pull out a lot of that. Here's the oleanders that kind of line the property, and like I said, we're going to be pulling that out. And we do have room over here for some garden beds. So I'm gonna pull this out, do some garden beds along here. That way there's just lots of places to have different herbs, tomatoes, peppers, things like that. One of the cool things about this property is we have a kumquat tree. It's not doing so great in the heat right now, but you can tell that there is still some new growth, so it's doing okay. I'm hoping once it cools down it'll all kind of bounce back up. But it's cool to have a little kumquat tree. I'm still not sure what to do with them quite yet, but it's fun to have. In this corner over here, we currently have a tree, but we're talking about pulling this whole thing out and then doing like a stock tank pool with maybe a deck around it, something like that, that we have a fun place to relax. So I know that we're going to be pulling this out and doing something along there, hopefully some other things in this area as well. If we do the deck, there'll be some containers there as well. And then on our garage and shop, we are eventually going to be pulling this off and doing like a board and batten type finish on it, because both sides of the siding don't match. And I want to try to utilize these walls as well for growing things, maybe like pots hanging on the wall or something like that. In front of the shop, we do have lots of space to again pull out some of this stuff and do more edible things. On this side of the property, we have more edible trees. We have a peach tree right here. Over here is a lemon tree, and then another pecan tree. In this back corner of the lot, we have some space behind the garage here, once we trim back the oleanders, of course. But we have, it's maybe 5 or 6 feet deep in this long, the neighbors have chickens, you can hear them. 5 or 6 feet deep, and it's really long, so we want to try to use this space to get a little more function out of it. So I was talking about maybe turning it into a greenhouse by dropping some greenhouse material down from the roof line and against the wall there, but we're not quite sure how we're going to use this space. In this other back corner, it's hard to tell because we still have lots of leaves to rake up, but we do have a concrete slab, and it has a concrete ramp built up to it already. So I'm talking about turning this into like a really cute greenhouse slash like reading nook area, just like a really fun place to hang out in the backyard. It'll be pretty but still functional to grow plants. Since there's already a pretty large slab for it, I think it'll be pretty easy to build something that's hopefully pretty inexpensive. Bit of a jungle right now, but we're going to be pulling out almost all of this and creating some garden beds. I think that this is going to be a good place to put some garden beds. There is some shade, but once a lot of this is out, there'll be a lot of sun for the garden. But we do have a couple edible things over here already. We have another pecan tree. That's what this big one is. And then in the front here, we have a pomegranate tree. And then there's another pomegranate tree here. You can see some of them growing. And then there is another type of, not sure what type of orange tree it is, but there is another orange tree right here. So I think if we get some of this cleaned up, this guy will look a little bit happier. We're going to be pulling out a lot of this stuff, a lot of those invasive trees that keep trying to come in. And then this part of the yard is almost always shady with all these trees. So we do want to figure out something cool to put over here, but we do need to figure out some plants that are going to do really well in the shade. We have some stuff that we're temporarily storing out here in the trailer, so that'll eventually be somewhere else. That way we can have a really cool hangout. In the summer, it's nice to have a place that's just not 1,000,000 degrees. So we'll be doing something fun over here. Along the back of the house, we do have a lot of space here that gets almost always full sun. So we'll probably do things like tomatoes and jalapenos and a couple different other types of peppers. We're gonna be doing like an outdoor kitchen space. We had started to make this at our old house and then brought that over. So we're gonna be turning that into kind of an outdoor kitchen. And eventually we're gonna be moving all of this stuff and making this a really nice porch hangout area. We have lots of concrete to add some more containers. So we're gonna be doing some other plants in containers. And something else that I really want to incorporate in our yard is creating kind of a hummingbird oasis or sanctuary. I have 4 feeders out so far, but we're planning on adding them all over the place just to create a really nice habitat for the hummingbirds. Well, thanks for going on this little tour with me. We're still trying to get settled into this new house, so we still have lots to clean up, lots to change, and a lot of landscaping to do. So I'm hoping come the fall I'll be able to do a follow-up tour of all the changes that we've made and things that have started to grow.